Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to ARTIVISM, the Power of Art for Social Transformation. Today we have with us Dr. Melissa Leaym-Fernandez. Melissa has a very diverse life. As a biracial woman in America, she learned at a young age the disposability of her little brown body, being raised by a single parent in poverty, overcoming devastating and life-changing trials. She went on to be the only person in her family to attend college, completing 2 bachelor's degrees, 2 master's degrees, and finally her Ph.D. with 2 areas of focus: art education and women's, gender, and sexuality studies. She has taught grades K through 12, community college, and at the university levels, including in Flint, Michigan during the ongoing water crisis, in India with leprosy-affected artists and their children, Penn State University, and currently she teaches at Port Huron High School in Port Huron, Michigan. Her research interest includes art education and adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, and gender representation in East and South media. She is currently working on her first book, which we can't wait to hear about, which will discuss how gender is enacted in TV, movies, tunes, and music of East and South Asia media. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. Well, I'm really happy to be here today. Like I mentioned to some that may have come on early, I'm on hiatus. I'm in North Carolina and actually enjoying very warm weather, which I'm from Michigan and I live in Michigan by the base of Lake Huron, and it's freezing cold there right now. My husband's like, it's 36, it's snowing. So it's kind of fun to be here. So as I start, I was asked some questions about how and why I returned to high school after getting my PhD. And there are a lot of reasons that I want to talk about today. But one of the things that was really important to me was being with my partner. I did my PhD at Penn State, and the 4 years I was there, I was alone with our youngest son, and I wasn't with him. And so just getting home and being home was a big draw, which for me is quality of life. I wanted a quality of life that I had control over. In this post-COVID, ongoing COVID world that we're in, stress is a real big factor, and things that people dealt with before that were stressful are now, raw, like we're on this high level of rawness. And so for me, quality of life was really, really important. And I wanted a workplace and a workspace that was conducive to my own mental health. And I went over when I got home, and I was being considered for 3 different positions at various universities in the Midwest. And I was prepared to be getting ready to make a new apartment, being separate again. You go where the money's at, you go where the job is at. And he said to me, well, why don't you call like the local high school, the district, and see if they have any openings? And I said, well, even if they do, they're not going to want somebody with a PhD. And he's like, well, why don't you just call? And, he kind of poked some prods at me. And so I did. And I ended up speaking with the head of HR, who it was the summer, happened to answer the phone. And she actually was a former principal of our youngest son, Max. And she knew who I was. And she's like, are you Max's mom? And I said, yes, I am. And then she was like, oh my goodness. And so it was really kind of serendipitous that all these things just fell into place, and it ended up being a good fit. When I went over for the interview, I just tell stories. That's pretty much how I interview. They'll ask me a question and I'd give them a TED talk. And, it was really kind of fun. And then afterwards, the lady that's now my mentor, Mary Jones, she made the comment, she will never come and work for us. She's too qualified. She has too much going on. She's so busy. I mean, she's just doing all these great things. There's no way she's going to come and work in our high school. And, I thought about it. I pondered it. I balanced all the pros and cons. And I knew it was a good fit. I had a 12-minute commute. How could I even be upset about that? And the working space was wonderful. And so for me, all of those things falling into place really made it a good fit for us. And so that's how I decided to go back to high school. One of the big factors was quality of life. The other thing that I really liked about the location of the school and the community is the school is only over 65% poverty. So over 65% of the high school student body receives free and reduced lunches. And so this is a big factor because as many of us know, poverty is not a thing that is by itself. It has cousins, right? Neglect, abuse, stress, all of these things are tied to poverty. And so though my student body is predominantly white, I do have a sprinkling of Latinx students, and I do have a pretty healthy percentage of students of African descent. They do struggle with poverty and its cousins. And my research for my dissertation was on 40 women artists of color, or I'm sorry, women artists of color that were over 40 that had childhood trauma or ACEs. And these are adverse childhood experiences, which are household neglect, household abuse, household trauma, and their activities such as having a family member incarcerated, or losing a family member, or seeing their mother or their mother figure abused or harmed in some way. It could be sexual abuse or neglect. It can be food insecurity, all of these things to the point of traumatization. And so this is what my research is on. And when I looked at women artists of color over 40 who are functioning and happy in their skin, I could see these things that they needed as children growing up and as teenagers to overcome and manage the outcomes of this lifelong traumatizing effects. Now, the one thing with ACEs is that that trauma doesn't, I'm sorry, I lost my thought, but it's like the traumatization actually can be intergenerational. And so, hey, Papa. Sorry, my dad's over there digging in the refrigerator. I'm like, what you doing? Papa. Thank you. But the outcomes of ACEs can actually be intergenerational, and they also shift the brain. So research has shown that if kids who have these experiences are able to get one solid person that's their go-to person that can nurture, that can love, that can support, that this person can, the person with the ACEs can go to, then they can overcome and manage those outcomes much more easily. So for me, through doing all this research, it seemed very logical after what I found out to put myself in a position where I could help kids. Because even though we'd like to think as art teachers, oh, we give choices. We give choices in the art room. We really don't give choices to kids about things that they need choices about. If they're living with the person who's abusing them, they don't really have the choice to leave. If they are having to go to school every day by law with a person who's bullying them or re-victimizing them, they really don't have the power to make that person stop. And I'm finding that a lot of times as adults, we'd like to think that we are giving those choices and that those choices are real. But from the perspective of many of these children, they're not real choices. And so in my classroom, what I like to do is I'd like to do community art projects. I like to do projects that require children to sacrifice and give things up of themselves. So right now we are doing the Ugly Doll project. So students they designed, and then they learned what a straight pin is, what a sewing needle is, what thread is, what's thread versus embroidery floss, how does a straight pin work, all these basic things. And they designed these very ugly dolls, and some of them are just so dang cute. I mean, they're just adorable. They're like little felt dolls. They could fill them with stuffing, or they could fill them with rice so that they would be like a heat pack. They could microwave it, make it a heat pack. And then all of them will get a little booklet. The kids have to make like a little folded page booklet to explain the name of the doll, or to the recipient that they can name the doll. They can make a story about it. They can say made by blah, 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 the end, whatever they want. And then all of these dolls are going to be donated to the shelter here in Port Huron for women of intimate partner abuse and their children who go to seek refuge there. And so that lets these kids as teenagers use their superpowers, which a lot of people don't realize teenagers have a lot of superpowers. And they will be able to then be a part of their community in a very powerful way. Many times when women relocate to shelters of this nature, they do it very quickly. They do it without being able to pack and take a lot of their belongings with them. And children probably have even less. And what belongings the children do have are probably necessities, food, clothing for a few days, and things of that nature. So to have something there that a child can come into this very alien space and then have something they can pick out of their own and keep it forever is really kind of powerful. The rice, we decided to add, some kids have special needs. They have psychological needs where they like something that's either warm or weighted. And so the rice gives a little bit more weight. And then if mom wants to microwave it, she can heat it up, and then it can be a comfort for that child as they're sleeping or as they're in a resting state. And so explaining all this to kids that are in high school making these dolls, it was just really has been an amazing experience. And it was funny because I was telling my mom this morning about 3 or 4 kids have come up to me, boys and girls. And they've said, well, you know, I wasn't too keen on this doll making thing. Like, I don't know what you're doing, Dr. M, but I wasn't really liking this. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, but now I think it's awesome. Can I make another one? And so that's really kind of the power of just being with them in their own space, demanding quality work from them, demanding that they step up. You know, they'll sew something and it looks like crap. And I'm like, this looks like crap. Now you're giving this away. You're giving this to somebody. It needs to not be a safety hazard, right? That we don't want them to pull out a string. We don't want them to choke on a button that's going to fall off. Everything needs to be spot on. And they're like, okay. And they go back and fix it. So having those kinds of experiences with kids that probably will not have a university experience, very few of them will probably out of the district will go to the university, to me is something that's very powerful, because these are skills sewing that they can use the rest of their life. Some of the things that we do, they can use the rest of their life. And so that's kind of what I'm doing, is kind of walking my walk after I talked the talk, you know, with my research, is really kind of putting it into place with kids who really need that right now. So that's some of the reasons why I went back. Another thing is that higher ed is really just in this huge flux of transition, and it's almost like an academic war zone in some places. And I go to work from 7:30 to 2:30. I grade things every other week, and I spend maybe 2 nights a week where I'll grade for an hour and I go home and have a life. And I have peers that are, and I'll be tenured after 3 years. And I got the salary that I wanted. I negotiated the salary that I wanted, and that's what I got. And you know, that's not necessarily something in academia. It's a lot higher stress level. There's a lot of public service that's required, like university service. There is publish or perish. I just finished my 2nd book chapter, and I'm starting my own book. I write when I want to write, and I write what I want to write about. And so I really like that I can make my own timelines, and I have that control of my life, which again goes back to my quality of life. I just like knowing that if I can give, you know, I can go up and give a student a hug if they need it. And I had a student come in the other day in tears, and I'm only in my 2nd semester in this position, so they know and can feel my sincerity, which I really am grateful for. But I had a young woman come in and she was crying, and I'm like, what's wrong? And it was really something kind of simple. She had a glass water bottle on her desk, and the teacher in that class had walked by and he accidentally knocked it off and it shattered. And he was mortified that he'd bumped it, but he was mortified that it shattered and it was hers. And she didn't know what to do with the feelings of his mortification. Like, he was so upset that he broke her bottle that he didn't know what to do. He gave her like $3 and said, go buy another like water bottle down in the cafeteria. But just being around people that are learning how to deal with those feelings. I mean, she was so mortified for him that she was crying and she didn't know what to say to him or what to do. So she came to me, which I was honored that she felt that she could. And she told me what happened. And I'm like, oh, this is okay. This is not cry worthy, right? We have all of our fingers and toes, everybody's kid. And just try to help her put that in perspective. And, just to help her see that it, as a high schooler, when we experience things, it's big, right? When you're in love, you're in big love. When you are sad, you're in big sadness. Like when you're mortified about something, it's big. There's nothing little. It's all big. And it's all like, oh my gosh, my world is ending. And I told her that's normal. That's right. Like that's where you're at. But I think a lot of times adults forget that they're children whose frontal lobes in their brain have not finished developing. And we don't give them, cut them some slack or give them a hug when they need it. And so I was really honored that she came to me and that she, let me give her some comfort and give her some wisdom so that she could calm down and go about her day. And I love being able to have those experiences because to me, that's like a real element of education for me, is just to be able to help one person. And if I can help one student find a creative way to let go of the stress, then I feel like I've been successful as an educator. I have boys that have made the most amazing dolls, and I have non-binary folks that have made the most amazing dolls, and I have girls that have made the most amazing dolls. And these are people that they're not quite sure what to do with me. They'll ask me a simple question and I will give them a very lengthy answer with very big words. And that happened one day, and a boy asked me a question and I gave him this very thorough answer, and he's like, wow, that sounded really, really smart, but I have no idea what you just said to me. And so, these are the kinds of things. And it's like, well, what part don't you understand? Let's talk about it some more. And I really love that. I mean, I love that they are unfiltered sometimes. And it's just so great that some are worried about their grades, but most of them are just so unfiltered because that's who they are as teenagers. They don't really care, but they will talk to me about things and they will share with me the things. I have girls that they're like, and I even let them vote to decide what they were going to call me. I wanted them to be comfortable with how they addressed me. So I gave them the choice of Dr. Leaym-Fernandez, Dr. Melissa, Dr. M, but doctor's in there, And so all the classes voted and they wanted to call me Dr. M. And that's what everybody in the district calls me now, is Dr. M, which is really kind of fun. When I see them out in public, hey, Dr. M, so there's this relationship. And I found, especially through my research, that those relationships are very important, because if there's harm or healing that needs to be overcome and healing to happen, that relationship can be a starting point for that to take place. And so, just having those little micro relationships are very important to me as an educator. Gee, what else, Argy? What else did I talk about? Some of my projects.
Yes, some of your projects and how you work with I guess how you engage perhaps your students in with your projects and what their reaction is.
Oh, so that's a good one. So last semester, I did a project and it was 11 weeks. And for some of them, it was utterly brutal. And for others, it was like, oh, I want to do this for the rest of my life. It's the same thing. I get very polarized reactions. So we started off with some very simple things, and then we really kind of built on that. And so what we did, and I should explain first. So in my classrooms, I have cognitively impaired students with what you would consider a normative functioning student. My lowest functioning high school student isn't a big body, but she functions about a 3-year-old level. So I am blending all those learning styles in one classroom. And I have 5 classes that I teach every day, and then 1 hour for my planning. And so I have to make sure that I can accommodate or meet the needs of those students, all of them. I have students that are working to help support their families. I have students that work just to have money to provide for themselves. So I have a lot of tired students sometimes that they're working or they're doing things outside of school. So a whole plethora of experiences going on outside of the school. And so I'm dealing with all of those behaviors inside of my classroom. So I wanted to do something with art and activism, of course, my favorite theme, right, is to use art to change the world. And one of the things, we did all these very basic things. You're going to learn about line, you're going to learn about shape and form, and very kind of basic things that we learn about in art education. And then I gave them 9 different topics, and they could pick whichever one they wanted, and they had to fine tune. So off the top of my head, I know nature was one, environment. And I actually used topics off of the United Nations. Oh my gosh, I can see the poster in my head. The SDGs, the Sustainability Development Goals of the United Nations. So there's a collection of 17 goals that the UN has established for the globe, and they all connect to those 17 SDGs. And so they could pick whichever one they wanted, and then they could work with a partner and do a set of 2 paintings, or they could do 1. And so they had a full size sheet of watercolor paper. I think their sheets were quite large. I think they were 30 by 36, 30 by 35. So a full sheet of watercolor paper. They had to pick their theme, an overarching theme, and then they had to fine tune it. And so they had this research element in there. And for some of them, it was very hard. Some of them did not read very well. Most of them did not know how to look up a topic or how to research. And so we had to learn how to do that. And then they had to find 20 things from their research, 20 icons they had to create, or emojis, little symbols. And then they had to define those symbols. So they had to figure out what it meant. And I said, and I would let them, if the symbol was already out there, I'm like, still like an artist, use it if it's already there. But maybe you're going to talk about something that there's no symbol for it, then you're going to have to make it, and then you're going to have to define it. So then they took all the symbols they made and they had to transfer those into this large watercolor. And so they had to make a cohesive body of work with the large watercolor. And I don't know, Argy, where are those posted on the site? The ones that I sent in?
I was going to add to what you were saying. You can find this project and many of the works. If you Google Artivism Adelphi, it'll take you to the Artivism webpage. And then there's a little tab that says newsletter, the Artivism Zine. And if you go to that, I believe it's the February issue of Artivism Zine. So you go to Adelphi Artivism, Google that, it'll take you to our page, go to the tab, I believe on the right where it says newsletter, and it'll give you the newsletters. And I'm pretty sure it's the February issue, correct, Carolina?
Yes, it was. Yes. Yep, I think that's
correct. Yes.
And I'm pretty sure we used many of, if not all of the images you sent. They're very powerful. And watercolor is not easy.
No, and that's what's really funny is, and it was really good for them because it's like, okay, so we're going to start very light. Then I had to teach them, because watercolor can be a beast, right?
Yes.
It's a very unforgivable medium. Once you put it down, it's not coming up. No, there's not going to be erased.
Yeah.
And so we practiced, we did how to do washes, we did all kinds of things beforehand. And then, they just kind of got comfortable and they spread out and they just went to work. And from beginning to end, with all the commercial breaks, all the parts that we did, all the little baby steps, it was about 11 weeks, and that was their major grade for this semester.
That's a long
and again,
time.
Yeah, for high schoolers, it was very long. But the important thing about doing it is I broke it up. And I did give them commercial breaks. So one of the things I love to do, that I do in the fall, at the beginning of each semester, just to get to know my students, is I do what I call heart attacks. And so I have the kids tell me, okay, give me a teacher that you really love and appreciate, that's awesome, that you just want to say thank you to. And they all kind of bicker and fuss, and we make a list on the board and we vote from who it's going to be there. And then we decide, I'm like, okay, everybody needs to make 20 hearts. So we just pull off the big red roll of paper and we talk and yak and listen to music and we cut out hearts. And then it's like, okay, here we go. Now we're all going to be sleuthy and quiet. So they all get tape on their hearts and they're holding them and they've got them stuck to their shirts so they can sneak through the halls. And then we just go plaster them on the doors of the teacher that we chose. And each class gets to do that. And it's really kind of cool because at first they didn't know what to do with that. But I said, it's always important to say thank you. It's always important to show gratitude. It's always important to recognize the goodness that others give to you in your life. And so they all think that's the coolest thing. And then for the most part, we're like really sneaky and sleuthy, and we got in and got out. And it's fun because as we're doing it and hiding around corners, you have administrators walking by, you have other students walking by, you've got teachers on, their break time or their planning time walking by. And, here you've got 30 kids like packed around the corner, like sneaking on a door. And by the second semester, people were kind of curious about who's going to get a heart attack this semester. And so it's something that they look forward to, and it's probably something that I will continue. And so we would do things like that, to activities that were quick, one day, high energy, to kind of break up that 11 weeks. We throw something in. I do a book day. And so I have a little questionnaire, like 5 questions on a sheet. I have books that are from all over the world that I've gotten, all different kinds of topics. And they can go pick a book and they can sit and get to know that book, and it makes it really nice. And so I like to do things that change their thinking. They're not allowed to bring any electronics into my room. If they have to do research, they can use their Chromebooks, but all their backpacks, their phones, everything are over in the foyer. So when they come in, they're just kind of cutting off from all the electronics and using the other side of their brain. And it's really interesting because they get frustrated very easily. I mean, we forget that they're children, but I always ask them and put it into perspective. It's like, how many times did you put your shirt on this week? In the last 7 days, how many times did you put on your shirt? I don't know. And I said, well, at least once, because you've got one on every day. So 7 times at least. And they're like, yeah. And they laugh. And I was like, how many times did you take your shirt off? Okay, at least 7 times. And then I'm like, can you take your shirt off in your sleep? Yes. Can you put your shirt on? Or like with your eyes closed? Can you put your shirt on? Yes. Can you take it off? Yes. How many times have you sewn? This is my first time. Exactly. So think of all the years you've dressed yourself and how good you are at it now. And now look at yourself now. You're sewing for the first time and you want to poke your eyes out and be screaming and yelling. And it's like, just take a deep breath and give yourself room to fail and try again and fail and poke your finger and try again. Like, this is what life is all about. So having an art space that encourages creativity and gives them permission to fail and lets us talk and banter and bicker and listen to music and make really amazing things, that's kind of what I really like. And I like that I'm in a space where I will see these kids for 4 years, right? I saw one of the boys in my classroom, his name's McConnelly, and he's in my first semester, and he would bicker and push back, with whatever I asked him to do in freshman. But now he says hi to me all the time in the hallway. Sweet boy, we worked through our differences. And I'm finding that I look forward to those relationships. So that was like a big quality of life thing for me too, is that I could have like a longer, more meaningful relationship, because it's not like just see them for a semester and they're gone, as I would at a university level or even the community college level, but I can see them and talk to them, and they're part of the community that I live in. So for me, going back to high school has been a really, really wonderful experience. So let me see here.
How is funding for your art supplies?
So that, of course, is the crux. We don't have a lot of funding. I did write a grant for about $16,000 in early or late December. I didn't get it, but and I've written many, many grants over the years. When I was in Flint and teaching in Flint, I was given $200 to run a middle school and high school art program. And I've probably written many, many grants over the years and been awarded them. I listened to the in-house person for the district who told me I needed to talk more about the poverty and the demographics and the numbers. And it has been my experience that it is the story that gets you awarded grants. And so I am going to be writing that same grant application in the fall, the summer and the August, to submit that again, and hopefully I'll be able to get funding. I think it's like every other school where there just doesn't seem to be money for things that you want money for. But at the same time, the previous teacher who did not have a strong I have a strong background in the fine arts. I'm a working artist and I have my education in fine arts. She didn't have that. And so she ordered like really kind of bizarre things like brush cleaners. And it's like, soap and water is how you clean a brush. You don't need a little container. So some of those things like that. So I'm kind of like dealing with partial supplies that I need other things to go with to make it work. But yeah, I think that won't be a long-term problem, even though it is kind of a struggle right now. And I'm not shy about asking people for things. If I need felt for the Ugly Doll project, I will reach out to everybody I can get my hands on. I have a huge bin of cross stitch supplies to do counted cross stitch. And this is the next thing we're going to do is counted cross stitch. And, you know, there's a Chinese woman artist now, I lost her name off the top of my head, but she does all these really great pieces that she suspends. And so we're going to talk about her work, and then the kids are going to do counted cross stitch. And so I like kind of incorporating in traditional American craft as an art form and letting them see all these different things and blending that with things that we think are traditional fine art things. Because to me, I think craft, once it gets to a certain point of development, is fine art, right? And so they're all in the same happy creative place to me. But yeah, I'm not anticipating with my tenacity and knowledge that funding for supplies will be a long-term project, even though it is this year, but I'm just making it work. So,
And you also said music. You play music during class?
Oh yeah, I always play music. Oh yeah, always. They get stuff from all over the world. So anyone that knows me will let you know that I love BTS. Like, I love BTS. And I love researching the visuality of their productions. But that pretty much got me through my PhD, was listening to BTS. And so I listen to music from all over the world. And my husband is Hispanic. And so like, we listen to Latinx music. I listen to stuff from Mongolia, the Hue, the big 80s. I love the big 80s. I mean, I listen to everything. I love the subtle resistance of Taylor Swift's music. I love listening to Adele. So I pretty much, unless the kids come in and they're really kind of wired about something or something has happened, I have all kinds of music playing that kind of is fun in the background. So absolutely.
That's great. That's great.
I was gonna say, maybe also you'd like to tell us a little bit about the scarf, and what's going on with that in regards to funding also, and what's your goal potentially with those scarves that were made?
Yeah, so the kids at the school did not have an art club. And so there was a handful of people that came to me and they wanted an art club. And of course, I don't get paid to do that. That's part of my volunteer service. And I said, yes, I will do an art club, but it has to have some kind of purpose. And they're like, what do you mean? And I said, well, let me tell you. And so while being locked down during COVID, I would get sweaters secondhand because I research fast fashion and the fashion industry and the environmental impacts of that and how fashion is used in media for character enactments. And so I kind of down this whole little rabbit hole of things. But I went and found sweaters that I liked, and I decided to chop them up, and then I would make long, thick, luxurious scarves out of them. And I did it for myself initially, just to have something to make, because I was in a very contained space and couldn't do some art means that I can do at home. And 3 or 4 sweaters will get me 3 or 4 scarves. And so I made like a set to match each one of my coats, because I like overcoats. And then I had these extra ones, so I'd give them away and I'd wear them out and about, and people would stop me and ask me where I got them from, and so on and so forth. And so it was kind of fun. And so I thought, well, something that would be really cool in Michigan, because it's cold, is we could make these scarves. And so I went to our local Goodwill and I said, this is the project I want to do with members of this art club. And they thought it was the coolest thing ever. So they donated, I think we had 5 huge bins of sweaters that I went over and picked out. And then the members of the club washed them. We have a wash machine at school, so they would take turns and go in and swap the loads out, clean them and sterilize them. And then they're cutting them up, and then they're almost done cutting, and then they're going to be sewing them together to make these very thick, luxurious handmade scarves. And their goal is to sell them at a premium price to then raise money for the art club. Most of these kids have never been to the Detroit Institute of Arts. Now, that's 50 minutes away from where we live. We're 50 minutes north of the city, and that museum is a stellar world-class museum, and they've not been there before. And that goes back to our cousins and annoying members of poverty, is that we think that just because you're close to something, you have access to something, and they don't. And so one of the things I'd like to do with them is take them to a very nicely funded trip down to the DIA, and then also have cash for different projects or other things that they want to do. And then, of course, each one of them will get one of the scarves as the makers. And so the other part of the other half of what we'd like to do with them is we'd like to, we're going to work with our police liaison in our building, Officer Marcano, and we're going to actually be donating them to people that are in the homeless community in our area. There's a pretty well-developed homeless community, and it gets cold here and people are outside. And so we thought that would be something that they could wrap up their upper body with these scarves. And so that again lets the kids know, look, poverty's real and it's beyond your household, and this is how it affects people in the community. And it isn't necessarily something that people choose to be in, right? That there are other systems in place that help perpetuate poverty in this country. And so it opens up the door for some really great conversations. And they've been really excited. Like, I'm there as a body to kind of keep them safe while they're in my room doing whatever they do. And we turn on music and they go to work. They have snack time. And then they have been cutting and organizing the parts to make these scarves just incredibly. I've been so impressed with their work ethic. And I've had kids that they finish their work that are they're students of mine. Can I work on cutting up some more sweaters? Yeah. Oh, can I have my friend help me cut up some sweaters? And I'm like, yeah. And so they'll like teach their person at their table how to do it. And then kids in my class will come in, well, when are we going to work on that scarf thing? And I'm like, oh, that's an art club thing. And so they just get really excited about it. And they're very simple things that we can do to give a little bit more of an extended life to products that people have given away, and to help fiber to stop going into our landfills. Fibers are, I think, number 3 globally of the waste that's in our landfills. So I was just talking to my mom about this morning. So when I was growing up and when my mom was growing up, there were 5 fashion cycles: fall, winter, spring, and summer, and travel. And now there are 22. And so when you go to places like TJ Maxx, everything there is disposable. It's made to be disposable. And so I want to help them, to teach them how to like reinvent themselves, reinvent their look, reinvent how they think about clothes, reinvent, what they want to do with things, and to realize that just because something has a spot on it or a tear doesn't mean its life is over. It's like, what can you do to it? And so we talk about all those kinds of things in the classroom and in the art club to kind of help expand their thinking. And for me, it's like, if we plant, if one 5-minute conversation resonates with a kid, it changes their life forever, because they think, wow, I need to make sure I spend my money wisely. So if I'm going to get this shirt, I need to make sure that it's a well-made quality shirt by a maker that's paying a living wage to the person that's making the shirt. And that it's not going to be a poor woman like in Bangladesh that was crushed in a building because greed overtook, the owners of these companies. And so, it seems like, oh, it's this far-fetched thing and it's really disconnected from me and it's way over there. But when I can break the dots down of how everything is connected, then creativity becomes a powerful tool to help kids make the planet a better place. So yeah, that's what we're working on in Art Club right now. It's kind of fun.
Not to be afraid to be themselves, right?
Yeah.
To have their own style, to not have to be like everyone else, to not want or need, these new and expensive items or labels and stuff like that. Just be yourself, be creative, right?
Yeah. This morning, my mom and I were at a secondhand store, and I overheard a woman that was kind of over on the side, and her friend says, can you tell me what's up with these ripped jeans? Like, why are there just ripped jeans everywhere? And the second lady said, I don't really know, and she was very curvy, a little, she's overweight and curvy, and like we all are. I have my curves too. But she said, when I go shopping, she's like, that's all I can find. And if I need pants, I have to buy pants with holes in them because I don't have a choice, because that's all I can find.
Well, they look great with leggings underneath.
Yeah. But she just wanted like regular pants with all the fabric there. And so, I think it just comes from people being able to have options to choose. But like, we're in a very rural area of the state, and there aren't a lot of options here for people for clothing or things of that nature to design what they want to do. But having those skills to be able to make your own or to change it so that it looks like you want it to look, that's very powerful. It's very powerful in identity, right? And
Right.
performative identity, and like saying, hey, this is who I am as a person. So I love having those moments with my students. It's really quite fun.
This is beautiful. What do you think, Carolina? Should we go to questions?
Oh, definitely. Yes, I have
Okay.
one. I have one.
So thank you, Dr. M, for being our artivist today.
You're
Just
welcome.
very quickly, on Monday, April 3rd, we will have Angela Chalkiopoulou, who will be zooming in from Cyprus, and she will present Art Literacy is Future Literacy. For more information on this and all the series events, upcoming and past events, please visit adelphi.edu/artivism. Our YouTube channel is Artivism for Shared Humanity. We have our Instagram and Facebook, which is the same, Artivism for Shared Humanity. Let's see, as a reminder, the Artivism Wearable Art Fashion Show and Expo is coming up in just a few weeks. The fashion show is on April 19th, and the expo will run from May to August. So please submit your wearable art. It could be an image of the or an actual item if you can get it to us. Otherwise, the image we will then print and display. But each of these should have a short artist statement as to what is the purpose of your fashion art, right? This item you're making. Let's see, if you would like to present or you want more information, please email us at artivism@adelphi.edu. And if you want to get more involved, please contact us. So now I would like to open up the forum to questions and to conversation. Yes, any questions or comments?
Somebody has their hand up. I see a hand.
Froso is zooming in from Crete, and I have to say it's about midnight there. Actually, I think it's about 12:15 in the evening. Oh, yes, Dr. M, you have somebody, actually two people zooming in from Greece. Hi, Froso.
Hi.
Oh, how wonderful. Thank you for coming.
No, not at all. But I have to get used, guys, to have without faces, because where I teach in England or here, when you have without face, it's rude. But apparently, RG told me that we're not supposed to show. So what do we
It's
do?
up to you. Yes.
Oh, you can hear. I don't mind at all.
You can.
No, I just thought that. Hi.
Hi, Froso.
I just thought, for me, because I lecture for years, if I talk to someone which is blank, it freaks me out. I don't know who it is. So it just freaks me out. So if a student has something blank, of course, it's people I know. So it doesn't mean everybody is open. I just feel a little bit uncomfortable if I talk to you and I'm blank. So yeah, thank you so much. I came late. I missed the beginning. But just this idea of, particularly, it's very interesting when the kids don't label, because art is not a luxury, art is oxygen. So I just think the idea of wearable is very good. Have you tried, is it Melissa?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you tried the wearable thing you were talking about, a tablecloth? Because the tablecloth as a concept of, you have a long piece of fabric or paper, and then you can draw on it, and then everybody can work together. And then if you chop it up and make a hole, then you could make it into a wearable coat or poncho or whatever. So from something that is collective, a table is a ground for meeting, for collaboration. So the tablecloth then, and everybody contributes, would be quite interesting, whether you would then chop it up and have it individual, for everybody to chop it up and make it a necessity item. It could be for a raincoat or whatever. And I think it's good to bring the necessity that I haven't got clothes, whatever you were discussing before, the stupid consumerist competition, and then make them create stuff that they're very proud. But I was wondering whether, and also, how long do you have the kids for?
So, a semester.
But I mean, time-wise, is it during class times, school
Oh,
times, afterwards?
yeah, so the art club is after school. I see them once a week for an hour. And then I see the kids in class every day for an hour, about 15 minutes. And then that varies. Some days we, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's an hour, but then on Tuesday, Thursday, it's a little bit shorter. So, but I do see them for 19 weeks. Our semester is a little bit longer than university
And
semester.
what's the age of the kids? Because I missed that. How old are they?
Oh, so high school. So grade 9 to grade 12. So like 13, 14 to 18, 19.
That's great that you see them so frequently. That's really good.
Yeah, and we have a good time. I mean, we really do have a good time together. I mean, I torture them. It's fun. They don't know what to do with me. I push back on their thinking and I ask them what music they're listening to and just all kinds of things. Like we have a really good time together and I really like it a lot.
But I think this freedom you're giving them is amazing. This because a typical teacher can't afford the time to let the kids ask her questions. So
Right.
to have a class that they can talk about anything, that's number one. It's like oxygen. It's so important.
It really is. And developmentally, it's really important too, that they have that time. And I realize, I like to talk and Argy and Carolina can tell you this. I really like to talk and I love to talk to people that are like-minded and creative. But I have found that I've had to remind myself that when I ask a question, I need to give them time to think because they don't think as fast as I do. I think very quickly and I jump from A to B to C very quickly. And so I have to remember and remind myself, little frontal lobes are not done growing. So, slow down, Missy, And so when I give them time to brainstorm, I will tell them, I will give you 3 days to brainstorm. So that's 3 hours and you're out of class time. So this is what I'm giving you. And I let them know. So they know that there's a deadline and that they have to come up with something, but I have to step back and let them think. And I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of teachers are afraid to do. They're afraid of silence, that uncomfortable silence. If you ask a question and you don't get an answer.
Yeah. Also, that's amazing because this idea last week, we talked at my first session, we talked about this product obsession of everybody, whether it's university, or whether it's kindergarten, everybody has to produce something. Yes. And you are training kids, brainwash parents. I want to kill parents because the parents install this idea that you've got to create something and it's whatever. So the idea of process is, and the idea that I'm hanging around, I'm doing nothing, but something might come up later on. It's fantastic if you're doing that. That's really good.
Yeah. Thank you. And, one thing I realized is I gave them this 2 days to come up with ideas and some of them did it in 5 minutes, but some of them needed that 2 days. And so that goes back to having, very diverse group of learners. I've got to give them that time and then be patient with them. The other thing that I find too is just like time to work. They need time to think and to work. And one of the things that I do that I changed this semester and that I will continue to do is I keep track of what they're doing in the classroom. So if they're sleeping, they get a little S. If they get frustrated and they start over, I give them like a little RS for restart. If they're working really well, they get an X. If they are just sitting talking with their friend and they're not doing anything, like they're just hanging out, like some of them just will sit for an hour and not do anything, they get a 0. So if they are out of class, they can make a little Zentangle. I showed everybody at the beginning of the year how to do a Zentangle and what it was and why it's good and calming for your brain. But if they do a nice quality one, they can get that done in less than an hour, like a little 3x3 inch, little regular Zentangle. And they can do that if they're out sick or they have family business, they're not in class. That's their 10 points. I give them 10 points every day or up to 10 points every day for their effort in the classroom. And so if they're sleeping, well, that's on them. That's their choice. I'm not making them sleep, right? And they have to learn how to manage their time. If they're talking and they're kind of slowly working, they get 10 points. I don't care. If they're some work real fast and furious on their stitch work, 10 points. Some need a break. We have what's called the shift room, and some need to get up and take a physical break. They'll get their shift card out. They'll go walk down the hall. They'll come back. They'll get back to work. Like, all those things are in place to help them be successful. They have to give me some kind of effort. But what Argy's effort might be in comparison to Frosso's effort, those may be two totally different things. And I can assess that as my relationship develops with each student to know this is all Argy can give me today. Oh, Frosso's over. She's burning the house down. She's making all this stuff. It's awesome. But Argy can only give me this. Then I have to be able to assess that.
That is so powerful, but also subtle and dangerous as well. The fact that, you categorize people and, whether it's, I'm talking about from my perspective, university, it's terrible because there are set tutorials. Some people can produce in 3 days something. Some people for a month can produce nothing. But at the end, it clicks at the end. It's obviously not convenient for teachers that it's not productive enough. So if you're based on the outcome, I mean, it's such a big topic and no one addresses it properly. The fact that, and also this idea of, when I have one child, and when he was little in England, educated, they hated him because he was daydreaming and he wanted to study music. And they said, oh, music, whatever. So the fact that they didn't take seriously a kid that was this dreamer, and instead of helping him focus, they would give up on him. And it was sort of totally uneducational at that time. A 15-year-old hasn't got the confidence to argue. Right. It's bad. So
and that's one thing. Yeah, that's one thing I found in my research was that every single one of my participants in my study participated in some form of daydream. They would close down. They would not talk to others. They would go to an imaginary space in their head. They would go to an imaginary space in their artwork. And they would create this world where they could escape and be safe and be the boss and be the queen. And and I think kids do that sometimes. I think personally more creative children do that without trauma, that's just part of who we are, that we are, like, the imagination state of our brain is in overdrive, and we have so much information in there that we're just figuring out.
Argy, I don't want to take time of others. That's why I'm plodding along. So
that's okay. There is, we usually try to stay close to the hour. If we go over 5 or 10 minutes, it's no issue. But I do want to say very quickly, April 10th, the ARTIVISM presentation on April 10th will be a roundtable presentation from various artists and individuals that come from fashion. Right? Fashion sustainability.
Ooh, I want to come.
Yes. That's April 10th at 4:30 on ARTIVISM. Carolina, did you have something to say?
Oh, yes, I had a question. Well, or like a slash comment, let's say, right? But of course, first, thank you very much for this inspiring presentation. It goes along the lines of, all right, say kind of like a case study, more or less, right? Because you're just starting in this new school, it's your first semester. It will be so interesting from an academic perspective, right? Like your background, to follow along with them, right? Because now, you discussed at the beginning that perhaps, it's expected that a high percentage of these children will not reach university level, right? But, right, it will be very interesting to see how the tools that you're giving them here and now during their high school years could either propel them into getting into university level or think, right, differently than others that perhaps have not experienced this or what they're experiencing in your class. Any thoughts about that, along those lines?
I haven't really thought about it in that sense, but I have thought about including some of the things that I've observed so far in the year in the book I'm writing about my dissertation research, which is how art making really helps overcome and manage ACEs. And so I have seen intersectionalities at work in the lives of some of these children. And just some of the comments they've made to me about how the art making really helps them calm down. Like they see it, they feel it, they know it. And we talk about that in class. And I didn't mention, but one of the things I did after the really big ARTIVISM painting that they did, the huge 11-week project, is I asked each of them 5 questions, and they had to do a reflection. And I required that they wrote a small paragraph for each answer, 5 to 7 complete sentences. And of course, those came in different forms because, as I mentioned, I have different learners. So some could only write really short, brief sentences, and others were very well thought out. And I asked them what they liked about it. I asked them what they didn't like about it. I asked them what they learned. I asked them how they felt when they make art. So I have all that data. And it's all anonymous data, that I just printed off. I don't have any names or anything on it, but I know that it goes with that first semester of this project. And so that information is very telling because I didn't filter it. I just asked my very open-ended questions and I let them respond. And so when I do write my book on the dissertation research, that's going to be a really big factor to come into place. And to see like how many of them are dealing with, I only will have like the anonymous demographics, of course, from the school of those in poverty. And but we have a couple different workers. One, she works like with kids that are having like really horrible home lives and have all this different things. She works with them to help keep them in school. And she's going to share. I said, would you be willing to share with me like anonymously and nothing that would be, breaking any privacy rules, of course. But what kinds of problems are these kids dealing with? We're in a Midwestern town of about 30,000. Like what's kind of this middle class thing that these kids are dealing with? And she's like, yeah, I'd be more than willing to share that with you. And I think a lot of people out in the world would be really surprised what, the Midwestern kids are dealing with, because they're not going to be really different from what other kids are dealing with across the world. So.
And we have a question from MJim.
Hi.
Hi. I decided to turn my camera on so you didn't talk to like my face. First of all, I wanted to start. I want to say thank you so much for what you're doing, because personally, I'm in my 2nd year at Adelphi, and it took me I was kind of introduced to art and literacy, creative writing at a very older age. It was like when I was in high school, and it had such a big impact on me that I didn't know where I would be right now if I wasn't introduced to it. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing, because I've had to deal with a lot of things in my life, and it's I feel like when you finally have the chance to really draw what you want, so put it down in a picture, you uncover so much about yourself. And I feel like not enough kids know that, and not enough families understand that. So to have a program like yours, I really think it's so important and so vital for every kid. And I just want to thank you, because my professor, when I took her class as an elective in high school, I was I'll just do it for the credit, but it became something that was so important to me. And now that it's it's such an outlet for me, and I understand, I've come to understand myself so much in the past couple of years that I've had my whole life. And I really listening to you kind of brought this back to me, and I just really want to say thank you for what you're doing and the work, and for putting these kids and making them understand themselves better. It means a lot, especially that they're starting this young, and I know how important that is. So I just really want to say thank you so much for what you're doing, because I know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Aw, that's so kind of you. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't agree with you. They probably think I'm torturing them, and I'm so demanding, and I want more. You're never satisfied, Fernandez. And it's that's right, baby.
Even if not now, I know that for sure that they will in the future, because it's gonna stick with them. I know.
And they do come back after the fact, and it's this is amazing. You did an amazing job, and they're like, thanks, and they kind of sheepishly, thanks, Dr. But thank you, and good luck with your studies.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, always, just if you just take your time and just keep on going. There's nothing more powerful than an educated woman. I mean, that's what we need. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of Rosso, do you have another question?
Yeah, I loved what, hang on. Yeah, I love what Emjin said. I really think it's so rewarding for a student to thank you, because it's actually, if you think about it, there used to be, when I was a kid, I had grandparents. Now, there are not many available grandparents around. We haven't got the luxury, either they're dead or they're in a different place.
Right.
And it was so important as an institution, because for me at least, it would be Emjin, the people, do I pronounce it well? No, Emjin, yes. It would be the people that don't push you to succeed. They don't teach you, they don't tell you to eat. It's this territory of freedom that everybody needs. So to have a teacher that you can trust and say, you tell me sometimes in a strict way what to do, but I know I trust you, because you can let me wander. I can mess around. That's so sacred. It is so vital. So I think, because if you think about it progressively, again, I want to shoot most universities, not a lot, but some of them. Instead of finding not a club, but a person, a teacher that you could click with, and either through cooking or through arts or through music, then it's more than a family to you. I believe that I've got been teaching in the same place for 30 years, and I think I've got 6 people, 3 girls and 2 boys, that I love them as much as I love my son, because if something happens, I will go to them, and vice versa. So I think this is quite a sacred relationship, but I just think it's so important that you feel, and every student needs that, whether you're a teenager or not. But now what they do, you've got a problem, okay, let's go to the psychologist's room, and she or he comes every Monday. So if you're feeling suicidal or really upset, you have to wait for Monday. Well, sometimes it's too late, So I'm just thinking that the educational system doesn't realize that unless you trust someone and it's irregular, it's not a timetable. You are there and they can call you up, you see them daily, and that's why I'm blurbing. I'm not asking you a question. I'm just saying that it's so vital that every school has that. But I don't think they can afford the money, and you need to have a job. Like, okay, art teacher could be the word, but unless you teach them maths or literature or whatever, history, then a teacher does nothing but listens and does art bits is not in the curriculum. And that's the problem, I think.
Yeah. And one thing I find too is when my kids come in and they are angry, I let them make angry lines. Like I have a whole project for that. Oh, you're angry? This is what you need to do. You need to stand up next to a table. We're going to tape this down. You're going to make as much scribbles as you can. And you're going to use your whole body to do it. And you're going to get this out of your system. And they're like, you're a crazy woman. And then they do it and they have this cathartic experience with this creative medium. And then it's like, oh, I feel better. And they really feel better. And they're just shocked. And I started doing that probably 15, 20 years ago when I first started teaching with kindergartners and first graders that would come into my class angry about something. And they didn't really have the vocabulary to articulate those feelings that were just consuming them. So it's like, well, let's get them out of you. And that's a great thing for adults to do too, is to just do something that's very simple and cathartic. Is that when our kids were little, they had a space on their bedroom wall where they could paint and draw on the wall. It's like, you paint and draw on the wall, and Papa's walking by again. So it's like, he taught our oldest one how to do tic-tac-toe, and I found tic-tac-toes everywhere in my house. And then she got in big trouble. But just giving them that space and that permission to express those feelings through creativity is just so powerful.
And very quickly, Farah Maldano says it's so important for children to have another outlet and a safe place to express themselves. It's in the chat.
Yeah.
Carolina, do you want to do your takeaway maybe? How are we on time?
Yeah, I see Ms. Rosso has a comment maybe. Go ahead.
Yes.
No, I just wanted to finish. I'll shut up.
Go ahead.
I just cannot stop if I like something.
That's okay. We love it.
The problem that you don't know what I'm talking about, but what I want to say is that a lot of social problems, whether it's professionals or university kids and lower, but more these last two categories, the whole issue of disasters happened because not only they cannot communicate, but they cannot express themselves. So if I hate your glasses and they make me allergic, or if you hate my glasses, right? It would be nice. Let's debate why red glasses make me allergic. But they are trained of hypocritical, yeah? So what they'll do, they will say, I'm going to report you because my teacher is wearing red glasses, therefore it's oppressing me. Instead of telling your teacher, hey, what do we think about color of glass frames? They would go and tell mommy and daddy, therefore it's this hypocrisy culture promoted, which then brings all of the rest. This spontaneity of not fighting, but say I'm angry, I think this is absolutely vital because I had a bit of not time of work, but displaced. So I'm online now from my job. And I'm in a society, small place as RJ knows, which I observe, it's very sad, guys, and do not quote me. I think you have two extremes. You've got the youth starting from 20 to 35, 40 of anarchists, and then you have the other extreme of conformist, established, bureaucratic, whatever. No, there's nothing normal in between, yeah? So I just think, and they refuse, there's the ghettos of those two clans, and there is no communication. And it's all hiding behind political agendas or parties. It is a disaster. As if you want to send them back to kindergarten and say, if you cannot express a sentence, how can you dare be in the world, So I think it's really serious. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
No, don't shut up.
Thank
No,
you.
we're gonna have to have a part two, right?
Yes, another part two.
Yes,
We can do that.
Here in ARTIVISM, we have that tradition of closing the presentation of the day with the key takeaway, right? And this one is for you, Dr. M in the house.
Dr. M.
What will be your key takeaway for action that you would like to leave us with, today, all of us present here as your audience and future viewers of, of this recording? What would be that key takeaway for action?
My challenge would be for everyone to find a creative method, whatever it is. It could be cooking or music making, or it could be sewing, painting, whatever it is, some creative making method that is your go-to method to relax, that you will have something with all the supplies you need in a bin, in a toolbox, in a bag, hanging in a place that's always in that place that you can get to when you are stressed out, when you are ready to pull your hair out, when you want to write on the walls, when you're angry, when you can't find the words to express how you're feeling because they're just stuck in your throat, that you would go to this little group of media that you have and make something. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's about the process. It's about calming yourself down, making something, and maybe even setting that made thing aside until later you get a bunch of these little parts together, and then you make something more out of all the little parts that you make. That would be my challenge, is for everyone to have the supplies they need in a place where they can go to it when they need it.
Can I ask you, how do you define the word making? Because making, if I write words, is that making?
Yes.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. So for me, when I was at Penn State, I didn't have access to my full studio, so I could not oil paint for 4 years, and that was pretty torturous. But writing became my new creative outlet. And so writing, editing, rewriting, editing, that became my making. I had to shift my brain from art forms that we think of to words. So absolutely, wordsmithing is a thing.
Ms. Maldonado, says gardening, right?
Yes.
Drawing, painting, writing, cooking, really anything. A collage, tearing up paper, gluing it down, just anything, just create.
You know what? And to take it to a very kind of carnal base level, somebody might be pregnant in the crowd. And maybe what you're doing is you're just going to pamper yourself because you're making a baby inside of you and you're just pregnant, and that's the way it is. I mean, sometimes that's all you can do is put your feet up or put them in a hot water soak, and that is enough, right? You're still making, I'm just saying. So it's a very open-ended word with definition. Absolutely.
Thank you. And Jim says she loves this challenge. Finding healthy methods to deal with stress is so important.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you back next week, and you know, the following weeks to come. Thank you to Sing for Hope, Gottesman Libraries Teachers College at Columbia University and Adelphi University, our sponsors. Thank you, Carolina. Yeah, so thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Edmund Frosso, for staying up so late.
Yes, thank you for staying up so late
and giving us, you know, a global perspective, right? You know, the perspective from someone on the other side of the world. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you to Professor Artie as well.
Bye-bye.